Hi, friends. Logan Clements here with the Better Events Podcast. I am so excited for this week's episode where we talk with Lorina Christine all about visualization, mindfulness, and how it can affect you as an event professional. If you're like me and you're someone who always is looking for how to improve and kind of get that extra edge in what we're doing, or just create a little bit more mindfulness in the work that we do, knowing that events is one of the most stressful jobs in the world. So we sit down with Christine. It's an amazing discussion. She really dives into like some trends she notices, what's the difference between visualization and manifestation, and what other advice she'd give you as an event pro if you're trying to do this, as something new. Without further ado, let's get into the episode.
Welcome to the Better Events Podcast. Join two event strategists, Logan Clements and Mary Davidson, who believe we can all create, host, and attend better events. In this podcast, you will learn about event strategy and actions that you can use today as an event host, planner, or manager. Hear directly from the people who are creating innovative and inspiring events today and tomorrow, and grow your business along the way. Now, let's get started, and thanks for listening to the Better Events Podcast.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another week of the Better Events Podcast. We are so thrilled to have you with us today, and we are thrilled for you to hear from our wonderful guest. We are going to be talking about visualization, mindfulness, and events with Lorina Christine, and we're just going to get right into it. So I'm going to pass it over to Logan to introduce our guest.
Yes, thank you, Mary. We are so excited for this interview. Lorina Christine is a manifestation and mindset coach dedicated to supporting ambitious female leaders to manifest their biggest desires, break through mental barriers, and up-level their lives to achieve more wealth, love, joy, freedom, and success. Hear, Lorina. Lorina is dedicated to supporting high-achieving women in the areas of personal development, mindset mastery, lifestyle design, manifestation, and overall holistic well-being to guide them to step into their limitless potential while experiencing more fulfillment and abundance in all areas of life. She truly believes you can have it all. Her mission is to empower women, connect with their purpose, step into their worth, and show women what is truly possible so they can live life on their terms and manifest their biggest desires. Lorina, this is a fantastic bio. Is there anything else you'd like to add to that?
I would just say thank you so much for the beautiful introduction. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we're so excited to have you. We like to tell listeners kind of this little bit on why we invited our guests. And we've been talking for actually a little while over social media. So it's fun to see
Yeah.
you here in this podcast form. But you did a lovely visualization for us. I think it was, right? A break video for the Better Events conference that we had in December 2023. And so if you listeners attended that, you may have seen that as one of the breaks. And this is a topic that we really haven't talked a lot about on here, not for any reason. We just haven't yet. And honestly, I think it's great that now we have you to come and be the expert and kind of guide us through that conversation. And so we're excited to learn from you today. So thanks again for being here.
Thanks so much for having me. Yeah, I'm so excited to be on the podcast. Events is something that I'm very passionate about as well. And bringing that in with the mindset manifestation, I think it's an incredible topic that is not talked about enough, but definitely needs to be talked about more. So hopefully we can shed some light on that for your audience today.
Yeah, love it. We're excited to dig right in and get started. So can you tell us, we like to kind of start at the beginning. And so can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, actually, your background and how you got into this field, but also tied into events like you mentioned?
Yeah, definitely. So events is my kind of corporate 9 to 5 background. I've been in events for quite a number of years, mainly in Toronto. That's where I'm from. And I worked internationally in events in Australia. Now I live in the UK, so in London. In such a variety of events, all the way from like consultant finance to not-for-profit to government to retreats, like you name it, I've kind of been involved with it. And yeah, online, virtual. And I sort of ended up in the line of work I'm in now through COVID. Actually, I was working at a very fast-paced finance company in London in 2020 when I first moved to the UK, and I was made redundant right at the height of COVID, like many event professionals. And actually, it was a really toxic environment before that. I was looking to leave. It just wasn't the right fit for me. Long hours. And yeah, we were told at that company, we're only as good as your last event. So not my favorite place to have worked, but I'd always wanted to do something for myself. And that I feel like just left that space open. When I lost my job, I was like, okay, I was interviewing for other things, but then we went into lockdown, and that left the doorway open for me to, say, what, I'm going to start my own thing. So I started doing virtual assistant work, helping people plan events online, which slowly over turned into, I was doing retreat planning for spiritual coaches, business coaches, entrepreneurs. And eventually I was like, you know what? I really always wanted to get into coaching. I love helping people. And yeah, it was something, personal development's always been a huge love of mine. And I started getting into the manifestation side of things. That's always been a big passion of mine as well. Kind of combine that all with the personal development, mindset, well-being. And yeah, now I've taken all of that background with events, and combined it all into hosting my own events now. So I'm actually just launched a women's retreat here in Scotland, in October, and yeah, I just did one in April as well, and do small events, moon circles, women's circles as well. So yeah, it's been quite a transition, but I feel like I'm been led in the direction of where I was always meant to go.
Oh yeah. No, we love those through lines that maybe don't seem obvious to everyone, but clearly you're kind of on a path of what you're meant to be doing. To help
Yeah.
our listeners too, we start so broad, but can you just talk a little bit about the differences between some of these topics we're talking about, like visualization, mindset, and manifestation?
Yeah, so they are all definitely tied together. Manifestation sometimes can get a bit of like that fluffiness to it, but mindset manifestation is very much related. Like manifestation is very much a neuroscience based approach, right? Because we're working with, okay, what do you want to desire? And then we're working with the mindset, because manifestation is very much based on what you believe to be possible for you, as well as what you feel worthy of having, right? So for instance, from an event standpoint, if you're looking to host this incredible big event, and it's like something bigger than you've ever done before, you're looking to like have the biggest audience or certain like incredible guests there, or if you're even looking to be this like event leader in the space, but maybe you don't have the confidence behind it, or you don't believe that you have the skills to do it, it's going to be difficult. There's going to be resistance around maybe putting yourself out there for that promotion, that role. So the mindset component, how you see yourself, is very important when it comes to manifesting that goal, right? Taking the action steps. It's a co-creation. We're not just thinking positive thoughts and hoping it appears, right? It's like, actually, okay, what actions do I need to take? And it's really like, who do I need to be in order to have that role or to host that event? What version of me is taking the action? Who would I reach out to invite, maybe collaborate with, right? You start really thinking big. And so there might be mindset work that you need to do around that. And like I said, neuroscience is heavily based on that as well. And same with visualization, right? If you think about like athletes, for instance, who are, in the Olympics, or just for a big game they're looking to win, they visualize the finish line. They visualize everything down to the detail. So you can also do that with events, right? Like visualizing how many people are going to be there, how the event's going to go. Because we all know with events, sometimes it can like be chaos, right? Or it can go so smooth, and we can never know sometimes what can happen. But when you actually visualize what it does that look like, how is it all going to go, the chances of it going a lot smoother and going as planned are going to be a lot higher, because you've already visualized it in your mind.
I think that's super helpful. I was just thinking, honestly, a bunch of different things while you were talking, but I've used these in different circumstances, mainly because I started going back to therapy, and she was like teaching me
Okay.
like this visualization that actually really like helps ground me in moments when I'm feeling overwhelmed, which is like my biggest problem. And so, this I like, it's so true. And if you haven't practiced it, if you're listening to this, sometimes I'm like, oh, maybe it sounds like weird, but if you actually try to do these things, it really does have an impact. And so it's pretty interesting to kind of see, and I can see the direct tie into everything that you just said. So that's awesome. And so you kind of mentioned how you got started with events. If you could dig a little bit deeper into what inspired you to kind of integrate these practices into the events industry, like a little bit more, and also just touching on, I think a lot of us know that the industry itself is like, it's a very stressful place.
Yeah.
As you kind of mentioned before, there are a lot of toxic environments. There's also a lot of positive things as well. But can you just kind of speak more into like what inspired you to kind of get into the space, and how you can bring this, or how listeners can bring this to the event industry as well?
Definitely. Like the events industry can be a very stressful environment. It's also very fun. It's very like, can be chaotic, but in a great way. And I totally resonate with you. You're saying like, I've felt overwhelmed before in the past. I used to have panic attacks going to certain jobs that I had that were so overwhelming. So many events, it never ends, right? It can just feel like a lot. So by practicing these certain approaches of breathing techniques, of visualization, of calming yourself in that sense, or mindset techniques. It really helps you to also just calm, stay grounded, and approach things from a well-being standpoint, to approach certain situations that might be stressful or certain things. Because if you're the event planner, for instance, and something goes wrong in an event, like even if it's not your fault, you are the go-to person, right, for that. So there's a lot of stress that can be happening, especially on the events day. So staying grounded, staying being confident is going to be like monumental in supporting you through those times. Or like I said, certain things for like EFT tapping is one thing I absolutely love. Emotional freedom technique. That is a process where you like tap on certain meridian points within your body. So for instance, like on the side of your wrist, top of your head, side of the eyes, and you say certain affirmations while acknowledging stress. And it helps you to really calm the nervous system, which is amazing when it comes to certain event industries. And exactly like you said, there is some environments, just with like any role, that are going to be toxic, but there's also ones that are incredibly positive and amazing. Like I've worked for some incredible, I worked with Mind Charity for a while here in the UK, which we were doing amazing events, and they're supporting the mental health industry. So like, there's two sides to each coin. So yeah, it's always about like finding what do you enjoy doing in the event space as well. And there's so many incredible roles out there. My love has been in retreats. I absolutely love planning retreats. I think they're incredible. There's nothing quite like that transformation you experience from going to an event, meeting people in person. You just like expand so much in these spaces and connect with people incredibly. But there's so many different kinds of retreats too. There could be team building for like a corporate company. There could be like incentive. Like I know some like, for instance, like big banks, they might have like their salespeople and they do like incentive trips. So like your job as an event planner could be going to these incredible resorts worldwide and like, sourcing venues and things, and like going on the Bahamas. Like there's so many incredible spaces that you could be in. And again, it's like visualizing, what do you want when you think about your events career? What do you want that to look like? What kind of role do you have, right? And it's like visualizing what that day looks like. What does your lifestyle look like? And that can be really helpful into like manifesting, for instance, your ideal career, your ideal position in that sense as well. Or do you want to be an entrepreneur and host your own events, right? Or plan your own events?
Yeah, I think I feel like when I first learned about manifestation, I definitely was one of the people that's like, it's a little woo woo. Like it's a little, I love tangible things and planning. It's like, oh, we got spreadsheets, we got physical things we can hold on to. And then I stumbled upon in a book what they call the whiteboard method, which is this whiteboard that you have I have it right now in my office, where I put up, and every quarter I put out, I have 8 slots for 8 projects. And then I have a section that says unexpected extras, and there's 2 slots there. And then there's new projects, and I have 2 slots there. And I use that just to track my clients that I sign. And the idea behind it is because it's something that's a visual reminder for me. Ironically, almost every quarter it does fill up with, almost every slot. If anything, I've sometimes had to do extra spaces for things, but it's just this like visualization. Maybe it's both manifesting and visualization that I've stuck with. And I think I've talked about it probably on this podcast, that it is an interesting combo of the two, because it is a physical thing I look at every day. But it also then is manifesting like, oh, I have space for things, and then maybe that's why certain things come to you. But
Definitely. Like manifestation is like, it is a co-creation. It's not just us doing something, but is that, and we all have our different ways that are going to work with us to manifest, but by having clarity, so you're like, okay, I know what I want. You're visualizing, you're seeing it every day. You're saying that, and then having space as well, because what can happen sometimes in manifestation, if our world is too filled with things like that are maybe like a heavy energy or keeping us held back, or things that aren't serving us anymore, we don't have room to call in something new, right? If we're looking to expand and maybe go into a new role or move to a new country, for instance, or do something different, new project, if we don't have the space for it, it can't come through. But when you're sitting there and you're looking at that every day, that's like visualize that's like your vision board, right? It doesn't need to be a physical vision board. It can be what works for you. And you're thinking about it. You're getting into the energy of it. You're imagining. So you're already in that vibrational frequency where that's part of the manifestation, right? So it's like law of vibration, law of action, law of attraction. They all coincide together. So you're getting into that frequency, naturally attracting back to you. And you're also in that mindset of like, you know what? Okay, I'm going to take action to that. Yeah. Okay. Who's the version of you that needs to, attract, or do I need to become in order to achieve that goal, and like thinking ahead as well. So that's really like, you sounds like you're doing a great job with manifesting.
Working on it. It's baby steps. I also have my goal events list next to me, which is not on the whiteboard. It's a separate thing that I do at my retreats for myself, of like, thinking a couple years ahead with the sporting events I do. To same thing is like, you have to I don't know. I think it's interesting. It's a good call out for our listeners that you're saying like manifestation, visualization. It is both a combination of you're kind of putting energy into the world, thinking about things, but then there is some action associated with it. And there are some like steps you need to take to kind of also create some of these things that are happening. But do you have other kind of ways that we can practice this, have these best practices with visualization and mindset? And you mentioned a couple techniques earlier, but just any techniques for our event pros listening?
Yeah, journaling is one of my absolute favorite go-tos. It's just really great to like get your thoughts on paper, check in with yourself. It's also a great manifestation technique. You may have heard of it before, or your listeners, if they're listening, but future scripting, that really helps you get into the energy of your manifestation. So you can do it in a few different ways. One of the favorite ways I like to do it is first you start off, you could set aside like 30 minutes, for instance. Do like 10 minutes of a brain dump, just get all your thoughts, any heavy emotions out on paper, anything that's stressing you out. Because what's really important with manifestation, you see this a lot in like the new age spirituality stuff. They talk a lot about like positive thoughts, just be happy all the time. But like you want to feel your emotions and not like stuff everything down, right? It's about processing our emotions. We want to have our vibe in a natural state of enjoyment, fulfillment, excitement, for instance. But yeah, so do a brain dump, get everything out. And then what you can do is write out a future scripting as if like you had just lived out your dream day, like, or even that day. You could be like, today was such an amazing day. I signed a new client, or my event went so successful, or, my client was so incredibly happy, and just write it out as if you just lived your dream day. What would that look like? And then you're getting into the energy of it as well. And then you can like set your intention how you want that day to go, right? Because sometimes what happens is people just sort of wake up, they go through the day, they're not paying attention to how they're reacting, how they're showing up. They're just sort of reacting to their day. Where with manifestation, when you set the intention, you're like, how do I want to show up today? What's my intention for the day? You're being the cause, not the effect, right? So that's really where you're taking that kind of driver's seat back. You're co-creating, where then as well, what you can do is write out like a day farther in the future. Maybe it's like a 5-year goal. What would that look like? How would that day unfold? Where are you living? What kind of events are you working in? And that really can set that energy, and like you're writing it out as if it's already happening. So your subconscious mind, same thing with visualization, right? It doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's not. So we're bringing the neuroscience again. So when you're writing it out, acting as if it's happening, talking in present form, same thing with like looking at vision boards, your subconscious is like, oh yeah, that's real. That's real. So over time, as you start to identify and pick up these thoughts, naturally you're going to start to maybe take action towards those things more. You're going to start thinking differently, start thinking as that version of you, and be like, oh, okay, maybe I'm going to apply for that job because I know maybe it's a stretch, but I'm getting outside my comfort zone. I'm going to apply for that like manager or director role, where maybe currently that's not where you are. But if you continue with these ideals of what you want your future to look like, it helps expand you in a lot of ways as well.
I love that. I love the idea of like taking control of your day, or it can kind of take control of you and like
Yeah.
really starting off right. That's really worked for me. And I think that's super true. And one thing in the industry is we have this idea of like a scarcity mindset a lot. And I think that's because partly we're a very entrepreneurial industry. And so there's just like
Mm.
this sense of like, what's next? What do I need to do? All of this hustle. And I think there's a good reason for that. But like, how do you balance that type of scarcity mindset versus the abundance mindset that I've heard you mention before?
Do you mean kind of like in an entrepreneurial standpoint? Like if you're looking for like next client or
Perhaps through that, yeah, or
yeah.
even just like what a typical event pro will go through. But in many cases, it's probably through some type of business growth, since a lot of us are freelancing or owning our own business. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. That is one a lot of people do struggle with. I see that quite often, but it's really about like getting clear on like where do these thoughts come from initially? Because if you're operating from like a scarcity mindset, there's going to be programming happening because from a subconscious mind level, our thoughts are formed between the ages of 0 and 7 initially. So if you've grown up with like say scarcity around money mindset, we'll look at as an example, or you've seen examples of like maybe a parent or some family member had a business and it failed, didn't do well. Maybe you have that thing of like, oh God, that's going to be the same for me. Or what if I'm not successful? If you're operating from those thoughts, you're going to be taking action from those thoughts. And that will be what your reality is going to be, because your subconscious wants to validate that for you. Right. But so it's really about understanding where those thoughts are coming from, getting very clear on them, and seeing what needs to shift and what do you want to believe instead, right? So if you think like, for instance, clients are hard to come by, there's not enough, the industry is oversaturated, is that really true, right? Is that really true? And what do you want to believe instead? Okay, I want to believe that like I'm amazing at what I do. And yeah, maybe there's a lot of people in the same industry as me, but like no one does it as good as I do. And, I'm amazing at the work that I do. I'm I'm in demand. My skills are in demand. And like when you have that, and it's not coming from a place of being conceited, you know what I mean? It's coming from a place of like, no, like I'm owning my skills. Like I'm damn good at what I do. So when you come from this energy, you're gonna be like, okay, you're gonna start acting from that energy as more and showing up with that, whether that's online, on social media. People pick up on that energy, right? Like, because if you're showing up online being like, I want to work with you. I'm so good at what I do. Like mousy kind of, that's not there. But if you're like, you know what, I'm incredible at what I do. I've got a spot opening for clients, people pick up on that as well, because you can't be in expansion and contraction at the same time. So when you're expanded in a place of abundance, knowing that what you're putting out is coming back to you as well. And you can use mantras, for instance. I love like affirmations, like universe, show me how good it gets to be, or the better it gets, the better it gets. Like being in this mindset can really shift things as well. And looking at things in like, there's more than enough to go around. It's not like there's only like so many clients that are only going to work with, that person. And really also being mindful of comparison, because that's a big one that I see so many people struggling with. Social media can be such a buzz for a kill for that. Just being mindful of like, staying in your own lane, looking at your skills. And sometimes, yeah, there might be gaps that need to be filled of skills you need to learn or things you need to up level. That doesn't mean you're not a capable person or you're not capable of succeeding. It just means that like, you know what? Okay, I look at myself as a confident, capable person, and that's just something I'm going to learn. And that's going to help me get farther ahead of where I need to be as well.
Yeah, I think this next question kind of dovetails nicely with that, more maybe targeted at all event pros, because everybody has a dream event that they
Yeah.
have wanted to work, whether it's at the current job they're in or they just envision themselves doing it at one point. For me, it's always the Olympics. I've had the opportunity to work at the Olympics, which is pretty freaking cool,
Wow.
but I'm now continuing to say I want to continue to work at the Olympics so that I'm, when I'm much older, that I can say that I worked, 20 plus Olympic games. Do you have any like tips for folks who are looking to use visualization or mindset shifts to help them reach their dream event?
Yeah, definitely. Like looking at yourself as someone who's capable of doing it, because I think that is like the biggest thing that sets people back is you can have more skills than another person, but the difference could be like they're actually taking action towards putting themselves out there and doing it. So it's like that's why mindset's so important. And I think it's so overlooked in industries in general, like in its entrepreneurship or in a 9 to 5. It's really, it's people think strategy, 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 which yes, but 80% is mindset, because if you don't see yourself as that person, you're not going to take the action, right? There's going to be resistance. So that would be really looking at like, okay, where is that? Why do you not see yourself maybe that way? Or where, who do you need to become? What skills do you need? Looking and networking, 100% networking, right? I find a lot of like that success is who, putting yourself out there, not being afraid to take risks. That's going to be huge. And I think with events as well, like it's really not being afraid to have that beginner mindset, like going back, like maybe you need to take, if it's like something like that dream event where maybe it is something like going and volunteering for a little bit, right? Or going and interning for short term to learn the ropes of that role that you might need to learn. You're going to meet incredible people, and they're next time a role opens up, you might be top of mind, right? So it's really thinking as well, like manifestation is that part. It's like, when you think like a lot of people get stuck in the hustle, right? Which of course we have busy seasons, but when you think about it's like instead of like hustling and trying to control everything, which can come from a lack or scarcity mindset, it's like, what can I do that is going to be a big amount of like output, but that isn't going to be like hustle, hustle, hustle? Because we can get stuck in trying to like throw spaghetti in all these different directions. But like when you kind of break it down, it's like, what is going to be that like 10x thing I can do, person I can reach out to, even though they seem like, so far ahead in the industry, but maybe just send them a message on LinkedIn and ask them to have a coffee chat. You never know where that's going to lead, right? I think there's so much underestimation in like the power of just connecting through those things as well.
I think this is awesome. Listeners, this is an episode where I feel like you need to like save it and remember when you're feeling down in the dumps to like listen to it, and it'll kind of like get you back into it again. So I know that this is something that I'm going to refer to. But we've seen, a lot of trends in the industry and shifts and things that continue to change. So are you seeing a growing interest in this mindfulness and visualization with the events industry, like specifically at events and conferences and things like that? Or what trends are you noticing?
Definitely. I think, just from kind of being in the coaching space, I've noticed a lot of spaces, retreats are becoming such a big thing, especially in corporate worlds as well. I've seen a lot of companies bringing on team retreats. Mindfulness in the workplace is huge because there is like, there is a lot of stress that people deal with in a 9 to 5, as well as in the entrepreneurship world as well. And yeah, there's a huge rise of that. People are, just from the certain of like, some people can turn to certain things like shopping online or drinking alcohol or going out and, all these different vices to deal with stress. But a lot of more of this mindfulness is coming into play because a couple of minutes of some breath work or, a bit of EFT tapping or just going for a walk can completely shift your energy and lower your stress levels versus, going out with your friends and downing a bottle of wine, for instance. So it's really, I do see a lot in the workplace that, just through friends and people I've spoken with, and definitely like in the entrepreneurship space as well, there's such a huge push for this like mindfulness and well-being, definitely.
Lorina, you're just like many of our guests where we want to talk to you for hours about this stuff. I feel like we just scratched the surface.
Yeah.
But before we let you go, is there anything else that you would like to add that we didn't get to about mindfulness and visualization?
I say it's just with anything, it's a daily practice because, it's one thing to say like do a morning routine or do it like just for, 1 or 2 days, but it's not going to stick. It's sticking to it every day. And it doesn't need to be this like big 3-hour morning routine. I tend to fall into that category sometimes because I love morning routine. But if you only have 10 minutes in the morning, you can just visualize and do a meditation for 10 minutes. Joe Dispenza has some amazing ones on YouTube. It's super like, it's not hard to stick to it, but it's just sticking to it like with everything. And just knowing that like, if someone else, like one of the best pieces of advice I ever have is like, if someone else can do it, so can I. Then if you see someone doing something that you want, they're no different than you, right? They just did some more action. They believed in themselves. And it's just proof that you can also achieve that goal.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing this with us, sharing your expertise and taking the time to be here. We super appreciate it. I know I've learned a lot today. Before we let you go, where can listeners find you if they want to follow you in your journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm on Instagram at Lorina.Christine. So it's just Lorina.Christine. And then I also host the Unleash Your Radiance podcast as well. We're talking about all things manifestation, mindset, women empowerment, entrepreneurship. It's kind of like your healthy dose of spiritual woo-woo. And I do a lot of interviews with industry leaders as well. So it's a really great space. And and then you could just find me at my website, LorinaChristine.com.
Wonderful.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. And we will link those in the show notes as well.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much for
Lorina.
having me. Thank you.
And I think that brings us to our bonus tip, which you have this week, Mary.
I sure do. Okay, so our bonus tip, as you know, sometimes is aligned and sometimes it's not aligned with our topic, but today it is very much aligned. And admittedly, I may have shared this before, but we're going to share it again because it's perfect. So there is an app that I love. It's called I Am, and it's a affirmations app. And so I have it on my phone. If you're on YouTube, you can see, but it's like this little widget you can put in the corner, and it rotates 10 times a day, and it has these little affirmations. So right now it says, I am content with where my life is now. And sometimes I really resonate with them. Sometimes I don't, but you can save them. So when you're having a hard time, you can go and look through like your favorites. Anyway, I love the app. It felt really relevant. I will look at it during events, and I even have an Apple Watch, and you can put it on your like home screen. And so I'll just like take a peek at that because sometimes events are hard. And that's been really helpful to me. So we will link that in the show notes, and that might be helpful to you as well.
Thank you, Mary. That's a great bonus tip. Listeners, thank you so much for listening to us again this week. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn at Better Events Pod. Don't forget to check out our private community on Substack. You know who you are if you've already joined. We're having so much fun over there on the Discord and with our special monthly bonus episodes exclusively for that crew. So give us a follow over there. Send us an email at bettereventspod@gmail.com. And as always, you can connect with Mary and I directly on LinkedIn. We love hearing from you, so keep those coming. And as always, thank you for listening, and we'll be back in your feeds again next Wednesday.